So it's related to supervision. People who contact me for supervision, and I can see in their questions about how we will work together in relation to their scenario, that they don't really know what supervision's about. You started to smile there.
It was something completely not related.
Yeah, tell us.
So I just noticed that there's a reflection of a coffee table above my head, and it looks like I might have a square halo.
See that?
It's the gay halo.
Okay, halo square.
This is how you know. You know, they talk about gaydar. It's like gaydar 2.0. I don't know where to put it, where the sun doesn't. Eventually going to find it. There you go.
I'm searching for the halo filter.
The digital halo.
I can't find it.
Uh-oh.
They've taken it off. Maybe it offended someone.
Probably.
That's my guess.
Jesus was having a Skype with a Zoom with the angels, and he put it on as a joke, and they took offense. I wonder how far around they would actually go.
Yeah. Oh, it's on my ear now. Interesting.
Sorry, dude, all of that just completely distracted from your...
That's okay.
Bubbling topic.
I don't know what more to say about that. That's the summary. That's... my experience has been that the people who I take on the supervisees almost always have not experienced supervision before. Maybe that's because I'm relatively new to the game. So coaches who have got experiences of supervision go for more established supervisors.
Yeah. Like they've experienced a couple and they know what they like and they stick with it.
I wasn't thinking along those lines, although that's also a possibility. I was thinking along the lines of there are supervisors who are more well-known and established, and they're the kind of go-to supervisors.
Okay. Okay, so they're potentially the names that are passed around more regularly, more easily found.
The big names, the big five.
Yeah. The big five. I had this pondering the other day about I can never remember I think it was it was either a biologist or an economist who came up with the 80-20 rule. I think it was an economist. It starts with a P. And this thing about
Pareto.
Yes. 80% of the
work is done by 20% of the people.
yeah. And you you see it within variances at play in just loads of things, more than you would expect it to happen in. And I'd wondered about coaching, whether that kind of thing happens as well there. And then now with what you're saying with the supervision, if there's something at play there.
Mm.
That was one thought. The other thought was about something to do with marketing and the way I wonder if there's different ways of marketing to get to people at different levels of experience.
Yeah, that's interesting. So I'm thinking about the kinds of, let me take a step back because I was about to take a shortcut. One marketing technique is to mention people's pain point, and I don't resonate with that on an intuitive level. At least I don't resonate with the language being used. But I can understand the concept. And coaches of different developmental levels will have different pain points. And then I'm thinking about earlier levels of development and likely experience will be experiencing non-countertransference issues in their work, if I'm remembering the image correctly. Or am I remembering it correctly?
You want help?
Yes, I want help, please.
So it was novice, intermediate, master, to paraphrase words, and there was more often to have non-countertransference related issues with the less experience.
Yes.
So it's what you said.
That's what I said, hey?
Yeah, reducing, and then what's increasing is countertransference related issues as your experience increases.
Yeah. So the more established coaches, and I'm imagining the coaches who have worked through their non-countertransference issues already through therapy or supervision their pain points will be about countertransference issues. The next thing that comes to my mind is if you're talking about countertransference issues to coaches at an earlier developmental and experiential level, they may not even be aware of such phenomena. So you'd be talking to people who don't understand your language.
Yeah.
So the issues and the language used to describe the issues won't resonate. And
Yeah.
it's not such a large jump then to imagine how that goes into marketing.
Yeah. Which it also can be a marketing technique where who do you want to work with?
Sure.
You know, that thing about I remember, so we do a lot of mentoring with coaches in training, and something that I seem to say quite regularly is just because you're learning to coach doesn't mean you have to coach everybody. And there's a similar thing with supervision, that you don't have to be able to supervise all coaches. You don't have to supervise all coaches.
Hmm. So this is where the context comes in for me, is I'm wondering about well, I think there are probably multiple larger contexts which impact this, like what is the level of maturity of coaching globally and regionally? What is the maturity and quality of coach training?
Mm.
And there I'm thinking more regionally. I'm going to be critical here and say, and this is limited anecdotal evidence with a healthy dose of cynicism, that there's an overemphasis in our region's training on coaching tools and coaching skills. And by skills, I mean basic skills, things like behavioral standards. And I was careful to say overemphasis because I don't believe those things should be excluded ever, or can be. Maybe I'm wrong about can be.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting that you phrase it like that, because I remember the first time being introduced to the ICF core competencies, because I was brand new to trying to learn about coaching. It was the easiest way to make sense of them was to see them as a list of tick boxes.
Yes. And
So they
probably
became,
linearly too.
yeah. And in that way, they became more a tool than a golden thread to valuable coaching. So in our area, in our region, so in South Africa, so coaching is younger than in compared to Europe and America. And then on top of that, our local professional body it's also quite young relative to Europe. The bodies in Europe and America, and it's also on a relatively young journey of professionalizing coaching. So it's their cycle of development links into what you were sharing, having a hunch about.
Are you saying did you say psychological journeys?
No, it's a cycle of development.
Cycle of development, okay. Of those entities, those coaching bodies.
Yeah. 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 There's also looking at so this is where I know very little, but have sort of peripheral stuff, is the learning mechanisms that's emphasized in South Africa is heavily tilted towards outcomes-based learning, which is more conducive to tools and tick boxes compared to, I don't even know what the European stuff does, but I know that there's regularly criticism of outcomes-based learning.
That's so interesting.
What's tickling you?
What's tickling me, and I have a hunch this doesn't necessarily apply to coaching, but how a model like outcomes-based learning, once it's accepted by the state, starts to dictate the standards and the methodologies for learning. And how that then impacts the quality of practice and the service that the clients receive.
So that's also, does it also impact the client's expectations of what they're going to receive?
Sure, that's an interesting question. What are your thoughts?
I had this hunch that if you're if that way of developing is ingrained, so learning being a process of development, and so when I expect to learn something, it's going to be outcomes-based learning in that structure, and then I decide that I want to engage with a coach, and I potentially a coach or a coach supervisor.
Oh, wow.
Then my expectation of them is for outcomes-based stuff.
Tell me how to.
Yeah. Tell me how I'm doing it wrong and how I do it right.
That's so amazing. I was thinking along similar lines, but not reaching that conclusion. So that's really interesting what you've just said. I was thinking that based on one's historical experience of education, that would influence the expectation. I didn't consider that it would influence the expectation of what happens in supervision. And coaching. And how to do coaching.
Yeah.
You're quite clever, Andrew.
Thanks. Can you flick the tassel around? What happens if you slowly sink off the screen and then you're
Well, it'd be easy to tilt the camera upwards. No.
I don't know.
Oh, it does struggle to grasp its own reality there and fade into a black hole.
Just crossing over.
With John Edwards.
Is there anything you want to do with where we got to?
Based on the idea that you've just expressed, I think there are some ramifications which have a direct impact on us. So, at least within the school of supervision and coaching that you and I practice and we're educated in, it's not outcomes based. So how do we help people transition into this mode of learning from an outcomes based mode of learning?
Mm. Does anything come to mind for you?
I prefer to think about it conceptually to start rather than practically, because I feel it opens up more options, and it when you're focused on practical application as a start, you can find yourself painted into a corner. So what comes to mind is there's a paradigm shift that's necessary in terms of learning modes. And I'm just contrasting that paradigm shift with the paradigm shifts that are inherent to our mode of learning. So I think if someone who's trained as a coach within our school or mode of learning experiences supervision, I think they would also experience paradigm shifts, and how those paradigm shifts different from the paradigm shift of one who is transitioning from an outcomes-based learning mode to one that's more generative and explorative. Is that something, can those shifts happen in parallel, or does one need to happen first? Is the question I'm asking.
So what was coming to my mind then is what's the individual's need? Well, need isn't maybe not the right word, but what's their comfort? So are they in distress of some shape or form? And then thinking about doors of contact. So if you can't jump ahead until the person's ready to move forward through the contact doors. So if the person's mode of learning is completely around outcomes based, or whatever the language might be around that, and that they're nervous and you're trying to give them a more rounded, in your experience of learning, that could be quite disorienting and distressing for them, and might have a negative result. So I think that's something to be aware of. So but I'm holding a picture in my mind, which might be useful to name. And you spoke about learning, a person's learning mode. Was that, when you said that, was that related to Kolb's learning styles?
No, I wasn't thinking along those lines, but that might be useful.
So that's what came to my mind. And there's the Kolb cycle of adult learning, and then there's quadrants that get overlaid with that of learning styles. And my understanding is that with the learning cycle, you pass through each one, you experience each one of the learning styles as facets to make a rounded learning experience. And my hunch is that the outcomes-based learning is stuck.
Which one would you say it's stuck on?
I don't know. I can't remember the words, which I feel a bit bad about, but the top right one, I think. And I say that of how I'm assuming it overlays with the learning cycle.
Have a look. I have it here somewhere.
Yeah, pictures.
I have a picture.
One of my favorite teachers in school always said, whenever you get confused, just draw pictures.
For some reason, obscene, socially inappropriate pictures come to mind to shock the teacher.
Oh. Okay. Little rebel you.
Yeah, I don't think I ever did that. Reflective observation. Does it see the screen picture?
I do see it. So that's the learning cycle.
Kolb's one.
And then he's got learning styles that he overlays over that.
Ah, I see. So you're talking about what happens between.
Yeah.
In these quadrants.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I don't know if it's worth doing a delve into theory.
Yeah. There's something that I wanted to say and now I can't remember it. Maybe it'll come back.
So this we went down this hole because of you were talking about wanting to look at it conceptually.
Yeah, just in terms of paradigm shifts and learning journeys.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I think I remembered what I wanted to say. I'm wondering about the nature and quality of the relationship in an outcomes-based environment compared to our type of supervision environment. Does anything come up for you or stand out for you in either?
Yeah. My hunch is that the outcomes based would be didactic or leaning more towards didactic. I think that's not to say that there can't be relationships, because there are exceptionally skilled educators out there. And also, didactic learning has a place in certain contexts, potentially.
Where would you bring in a didactic approach as a supervisor?
Oh, that's interesting. So I've never experienced this as being a supervisor or being supervised, but I've heard colleagues supervising where their client was getting themselves into dangerous territory, whether it be for burnout or something that they weren't looking after themselves well enough to be able to show up and work with clients themselves. And I know of two colleagues in particular who have said to coaches, you must stop working now. And I suppose that's a pretty didactic moment. But in the greater context of how I know those people work, there was really deep relation.
Yeah. So there seems to be a fundamental quality of relationship that exists, and within that there are different modes, like a didactic mode, an explorative mode, a supportive mode, just to name a handful.
Yeah.
That's not a handful, because that's 3 and we've got 5 fingers and a palm. In case there's anyone outside of the planet watching.
To you, there might be a handful.
Well, I didn't want to reveal that yet.
No, not you.
Oh, sorry.
Extraterrestrial viewers.
That was awkward.
Okay, where are we? Where are we?
Extraterrestrials.
Okay.
Interestingly, Eric Byrne did talk about extraterrestrials as a stepping stone to what would someone from Mars say, observing the interaction, I think, between a practitioner and a client, if I'm not mistaken. But that may be another story. So where were we? Being or using a didactic mode and the difference in the relationships. So can I play with something? If didacticism is just a mode within relationship, then what other qualities does the relationship have that's a little bit more distanced from the modes within that relationship? And contrasting that in supervision and outcomes-based learning. One thing's come to mind for me.
Yeah.
The level of partnership.
Say a bit more.
Intuitively, there's a greater degree of partnership in the kind of coaching and supervision we do than would exist in outcomes-based learning. And I'm going to mention it anyway. I almost ended up going around in circles, coming back to relationship, about how relationship is so much more tangible and like thicker in a coaching and supervision relationship than it might be in an outcomes-based school environment.
Hearing you speak now, it's starting to sound like the relationship is the most important thing. Because from that relationship, it enables learning to emerge and happen.
Yes. So what's changed for me from in this discussion is it may be that there is actually just more relationship in the kinds of practice we do than there is in a school environment in which it's just hard skills that are being taught. So what's interesting then is what's the focus of the work. In our work as supervisors and I think as coaches as well, we're not teaching hard skills. We are playing a role in the learning of relational skills. And I think even in coaching, we do that because it's people's relationship to task, to others, to self, to the world. It's how they think, feel, and behave holistically, not just one dimension.
Yeah.
It's a whole person coaching.
Yeah.
It's not about how to change a tire. That's pretty
It's about
simple.
it's about who the person you need to be able to change the tire.
Yeah, it really is. Because for some people, they may think, oh, that's only a man's job, or I haven't got the technical skill to do that.
Yeah.
Those are limiting beliefs.
Yeah. So in the moment of surprise, potential distress, being able to still show up as your authentic self, or at least be able to show up. You know, this is something that I've had a couple of links to lately. Something that jeepers. Something that was a bit of a catchphrase for me about what made coaching earlier on, but then I, in some ways, let it go a bit. But I'm reminded about how important it is now. Is for me, what makes coaching really valuable is when somebody brings a presenting topic or conundrum, issue, whatever, to coaching, that by the time they get to the end of their coaching experience, they should be able to deal with something like that again without the need of another coach expressly.
Why?
Because they've learned more about themselves. They've expanded their ability and their way of being to be able to deal with things. And I would hope as well that it's not just things on that. If you to put a gradation of things, it's not just on I'm coming with a level 6 topic. Now all level 6 topics are I can handle. It's like and more, because I've learned so much about myself in the process that I can actually, do many more levels because I've learned so much about myself. I've learned, yeah.
Like where you get stuck, what your triggers are, how to mitigate or those triggers or to deal with them when they arise, how one thinks productively, the limitations of that, bringing in like one main topic that I've noticed in my supervision and coaching experience is people get stuck in their thinking, and I guess there are various ways of doing that, like not only a particular mode of thinking, but exclusively using thinking as a mode of problem solving.
Yeah.
And not bringing in information from what's happening in the body. So what are physical experiences? What are emotional experiences? What's the meaning of those in relation to the topic? And using that, like if we're going to really simplify it, just as information or data points to bring into the problem solving equation.
I was just I was thinking then about one of the key abilities then is about recognizing or acknowledging what's happening. And then I bounced off onto two things. There was so I don't know all the steps, but the 12 steps of dealing with addiction. I believe the first step is admitting that there's a problem. So there's the first step is about recognition, and then in Professor Mark Brackett's work, Permission to Feel, and he uses a tool where I can never get this word. The acronym is ruler, and the first, and R is recognize. And how, so through a coaching process, to use the words that you said earlier, it's looking at what mode you're in, being able to know what mode you're, being able to know a bit more about what mode you're in, what's the potential hooks, the limiting beliefs, and what are your personal flavor of antidotes or tricks or tactics that you know work for you.
Mm-hmm. So I'm thinking about that in relation to coaching competencies, and I'd imagine that it's awareness, creating awareness. And then I'm thinking, well, where does that, that's quite late on in the list of competencies. I don't think that's coincidence. And the next thing I was thinking is, where does establishing relationship lie in the list of coaching competencies? So the first one, which I think, okay, so to be clear, I'm referring to the ICF competencies.
Yeah.
I think it is appropriate to, as a first step, to check one's competence to work with the client. So that's professional and ethical standards. But interestingly, the second one is the focus on the agreement and establishing the coaching agreement. And the third one only is about the relationship. And I find that quite interesting. So how can you meaningfully establish a coaching agreement without the relationship being trusting and safe and contained enough? And I know that the list of competencies isn't one to be followed rigorously in a linear fashion.
Mm-hmm.
Often it's interpreted like that. And I think the fact that it's numbered leads people, subconsciously at least, to interpret it as a hierarchy of importance. It would make a lot more sense to me to have a relationship as the second competence.
Would have been interesting to know more about all the committees that were involved in creating the competencies, the list, if and how they discussed that, the sequence of competencies. Because I also noticed that so in the new list of competencies, it's in the same order. And there's also so in the current list, there's that distinction of they get broken into two subcategories. So the establishing the coaching agreement is in setting the foundation, and establishing trust and intimacy and coaching presence is in the subcategory of co-creating the relationship. So they're seeing them as separate subcategories. But I wonder if it's out of necessity that they just felt like it needed to be in that order, so to put it into subcategories, whether this is obviously really hanging on to the importance of sequential numbering.
And there's meaning to that.
You want to say more of it?
There's meaning to numbering. I don't know what more to say about it, because I don't know what that meaning is. I can take some guesses at it. It establishes a hierarchy or an order, not necessarily of importance directly, but order of sequence.
Actually, so it was interesting because I was thinking now about in that David Klutzerbach short article that I've spoken to you about, where it's quite old now, but he talks about his own thinking of the natural flow of a coaching discussion, and it's a really nice read. And in there, he shares some anecdotes. And there was one where things just really didn't go well in a piece of coaching that he was observing. And the coach being observed was so stuck in a sequential process of coaching that the client, I can't remember what it was, but the client had said something, and it was like something huge, and the coach had said, like, completely sidestepped it.
It's not time for that yet, or something. Probably.
Yeah, so something like that. Like, okay, that's nice, but what about that? And they've just like told them about something horrific or something. So yeah, I get. So yes, so numbering is important. I think so. What we're coming out of our discussion, we're highlighting that relationship is exceptionally important, and the question mark is about how can you create a contract without relationship.
I just want to check something you said. You said numbering is important.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if you meant to say that. Or what is the context of that?
From what you said, sequential, when you spoke about sequential numbering.
Yeah. Maybe we're on the same page. And I also don't want to end up being pedantic, so something off if necessary. I think numbering is significant, but I don't. when one says numbering is important, it can be interpreted as saying it's necessary.
Okay. So you're not seeing significant and important as synonyms?
No.
Okay.
Not in this context.
Okay. I retract my use of the word important and formally request to have it minuted that I meant significant.
Done. The paperwork is through. The paperwork's just been returned. Request denied. Now what do we do?
Oh, damn. I'll do 10 lashes at dawn.
Okay. You're using numbering again, Andrew. 10 lashes. Out of sequence, 10 lashes out of sequence. Start with 9.
My 10th yeah. Yeah, funny.
So yeah,
where are we now?
I also was wondering. I was wondering about the impact of not numbering the competencies, and I'll bring in a concept of balance here. I think numbering can be used to some good effect, but it also may have a negative, unintended consequence. So if we, yeah.
I missed something completely, but I'm not sure if it really changes what the point of this is.
Yeah. Shoot.
So in the new list of competencies, the subcategory foundation does not include the contracting element.
What's
so
in there?
The foundation is demonstrates ethical practice and embodies a coaching mindset.
Oh, that's
and then the second,
quite open to interpretation.
Yeah.
I don't think.
And then the second, no, not at all. The second one is co-creating the relationship, and that's where there's 3 points. So the first one being establishes and maintains agreements, then it cultivates trust and safety, and then maintains presence.
I need a toilet break.
Okay.
Going to mute the video. Okay, you rump-fed Runyon.
What's that?
I believe it's from Macbeth.
Oh,
I absolutely love it. I quite like rump. I have no idea what a Runyon is, though. Hey Siri, what is a Runyon?
Just a second. The definition of...
did you just say hum?
Starting again. The definition of the word Runyon is United States writer of humorous stylized stories about Broadway and the New York Underground, 1884 to 1946.
I think Shakespeare
No.
predates that by a couple of
It's a
centuries.
mangy or scabby creature.
Oh, I like that. Scabby. But what's interesting,
nasty.
What's interesting is that mangy and scabby creatures were eating rump, which is quite highly priced as a meat cut these days. So what were they eating in those days? What were the elite?
I would have thought that I would have thought that most meats were reserved for the elite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So admittedly, I was not following you because my back teeth were floating in the last bit that you read.
Okay. Joe, I don't know if it's that important.
Okay, cool. Where do you want to go in the conversation?
So I interrupted you. I think that you were getting to summing up something.
Summing up something. I didn't feel interrupted, so I'm not sure if that's important.
Okay.
Maybe we should end with some final thoughts on or takeaways.
So what's coming to my mind is so this discussion was prompted by your observation about having a hunch of where a potential supervision client's experience or lack of experience of supervision is based on the kinds of questions that they're asking. If I recall correctly.
And I've changed my perspective on that. That their questions may be framed by their learning experience to date.
Yeah.
In fact, not maybe, but are very likely.
Yeah. And then through a bunch of discussion, we spoke about a transformational experience, and the importance of relationship in inviting and enabling that along with learning. So there's this thing that I'm reminded of regularly is from one of my mentors saying, be of value to the person that comes into the room.
Yeah.
I feel more settled. It doesn't feel completely foreign, so I think I'm reminded of the settled feeling. And the reminder of trusting the process. This is a journey, and be of value.
Mm. Mm.
And for you?
So before it slips my mind, the be of value is relevant to what the person brings. And as a practitioner, you won't know where to bring value or how to bring value unless you engage with the person.
Mm.
So I think it's not just a simple thing. It's dependent on relationship, on conversation, on competence, on being present. I think there are a couple of dimensions to bringing value.
Yeah.
And I think that's resonant with an holistic view of practice as opposed to a one-dimensional, this is about teaching hard skills. The other thing I'm wondering is about how my own, and I think any other practitioner can ask the same question, how does one's own experience of education and relationship in education impact how we engage with our own clients?
Yeah.
Remember to like, share, subscribe, and comment. That's an instruction.
That was you in your didactic box.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you want to try it from another angle so we can cast a wide net?
Not really.
Pressure's on. Perform, monkey!
No. What was that?
I don't know. Shall I ask for a rebroadcast? Say again?
Yeah.
It's not coming.
Shouting something monkey at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I suppose if it depends on where you put the emphasis on what you said. So if it's a remember to.
I haven't heard that one before. Emphasis.
It's from the movie View from a Top.
Okay.
Where there's a small town country girl that has this big dream of becoming an intercontinental
missile
cabin crew.
Oh.
Cabin crew. And there's in the training school, Mike Myers plays the chief trainer, and one of the students is portrayed as a real ditz. So she's holding the script and she runs up to the emergency door and she goes, "Ass is the window." And he shouts at her, you got your emphasis on the wrong syllable."
Ass is the window. That is so obscure, you're going to have to, or so off, you're going to have to help me. What does it actually mean?
Assess the window.
Assess the window.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm guessing it's
an emergency. It's an emergency drill. She runs to the emergency exit.
Assess the window.
Assess the window.
Okay. Oh my god.
Wow.
That's weird. Yeah,
anyway, so I took from Mike Myers, your emphasis is on the wrong syllable.
Mm. Thank you, Mike.
Anyway, back to so your emphasis could have been portrayed as an open invite to anyone that has enjoyed to like, subscribe, and comment.
And share. Say share.
And share.
Yeah. I'm actually finding myself doing that right now because your mode was way more compelling.
Okay.
Thank you for playing
Thanks,
Silly
dude.
Beggars.